Chapter 20 Noah POV. I gasped as I felt my lungs filled with air. Sitting up, I coughed and started to take up deep breaths. Noah! My mother's voice rose, followed by a huge hug. Mom! I shouted, shocked, as she cried and hugged me tightly. You got me so scared, God. I thought I lost you. You flatlined 3 times. She said, recouping me and crying as she hugged me tighter. I put my hand on her head and tried to comfort her, but she only seems to get more sad as her grip on me increased. Baby, let him go. You are squeezing him. Dad said as he pulled Mom off me. I gasped as I saw my mom's condition. Her eyes were red and she looked so skinny and tired. Dad was also the same, even though he was much more composed than Mom. What happened? Is everyone safe? I asked as Dad nodded. Yes, everyone's safe. No attacks since then, which is very strange, he said as I looked at him confused. How long was I out? I asked as he smiled, sat on my bed. A week, he said as my eyes widened. A week? I shouted, shocked, as he nodded sadly. Yes, a week, he said as I looked at him, hard to believe. Your body took in the most casein poison, and on top of that you used your powers exceeding the limit. Your body went on deep sleep, but everything's good. Now you woke up. I will go call the doctor, he said as he walked out. But I started, but Mom came and took my hand. It's okay. A lot to process, I know, she said. She was looking hesitant. She had that face when she wanted to ask something, but also at the same time afraid. Mom, you can ask anything. I smiled as she looked at me with wide eyes. Well, did you see him? She asked as my eyes widened. You mean the Lord? I asked as she nodded. How did you know? I said as she smiled. I just had a hunch, she said as I smiled. I met Lord Vermeer and Earth God, I said as her eyes widened. Wait, both? She asked as I nodded. Yeah, I said as she smiled. I have only met one, she said as she sat next to me excited. What's the Earth God like? She asked as I smiled. Very calm and soothing. Lord Vermeer gave me an intimidating war vibe, but Earth God, on the other hand, was warm and homely feel, I said as she nodded. Yes, I remember his eyes. It was intimidating, and the way its color changed was well, she said as I nodded in agreement. What are you both talking about? Dad came in with a doctor behind. Oh, nothing. Mom said as they raised an eyebrow. Secret from me? He asked as Mom laughed and kissed his cheek. No, we'll tell you later, she said as he nodded. How are you feeling, Your Majesty? The doctor asked. I'm fine. I feel better now, I said as he smiled and nodded. He waved his hand as the equipment attaches me before a screen appears in front of him. Seems like your body energy is 78%. Your vitals are good and your aura is almost back to normal, he said before everything disappeared. You are perfectly all right, Your Majesty, he said as I nodded smiling. Thank you, I said as bowed before walking out. Noah, do you know what happened? Dad asked as I looked at him confused. Everything was strange, Noah. The demons were so strong, and I knew we were fighting a losing battle. But suddenly, while the demon rose in the air, they were struggling and screaming in pain. It was as though somebody cut their oxygen. Then, suddenly we felt a wave of energy release. It didn't affect the light creatures, but did some damages to the dark creatures. But the demons, they were completely destroyed, disintegrated. Did you see anything, Noah? The power that was formed emerged around the area we found you, he said as my eyes widened. My head played every single incident that happened in the fight. King Azivior's death, Veronica's power. Where's Veronica? I asked as he smiled sadly. In the room next to you. He hasn't woken up yet, he said and paused momentarily looking at me. And we found King Azivior with you guys, but he was dead, he said as I sighed and nodded. Yeah, he saved us, I said as my eyes filled with tears. Oh, Noah, don't cry. I know you care for him, Mom said as she hugged me. I used to always visit him with Veronica when I was younger. I have also visited him once I came back from training. I want to see Veronica, I said as she parted and smiled. Of course you can, she said, and she helped me stand up. Mom, I can walk on my own. I rolled my eyes as she tries to hold my weight. What if you fall? She said worriedly as I looked at her and smiled. I will be fine, I said as she frowns but still let me go. Once we reached the front of Veronica's room, she turned and smiled. I will be in the palace with Dad, she said as I nodded. She kissed my cheek and went back as I took a deep breath looking at the door. I opened the door and entered, but stopped midway as I saw Philip and Mr. Walfred, the scary bodyguard and dark wizard Viceroy. Your Majesty, both said as they stood up and bowed on seeing me. What are you doing here? I asked as I walked to them. We came to visit her, he said as I looked at Veronica. She was connected to many tubes, but I noticed her looking normal. For example, no marking on her body. The doctor said her coma is due to the excess of energy drained, Philip said as I looked at him. Are you okay now? He asked as I nodded, still staring at him. Does he know? My gaze turned to his father, and he smiled at me, as if he knows what I'm thinking. Does your Majesty want to know anything? He asked as my eyes widened. You know, I said as he smiled. We do, sire, he said. Tell me about her. I shouted angrily, but he just stayed calm. Please calm down, Majesty. I will tell you, but after the ceremony of King Azivir, he said as I nodded. Okay, I said as he bowed. When is the ceremony? I asked as he smiled at me sadly. Tomorrow, he said as I nodded. I'll see you after the ceremony then, I said as he smiled. You will be there, right, Your Majesty? He asked as I nodded. Yes. They both bowed their heads and then walked out, leaving me alone with Veronica. I sat on the chair next to her and held her cold hands. I'm sorry for everything. I know you wanted to be the one doing the ceremony for your father, I said as I kissed her hand. According to our wizard tradition, on the 7th day of death of a family member, there will be a ceremony of releasing aura as the sun starts to rise. It's to let the spirit reach the Lord in peace. I looked at Veronica and inside. The images of her using powers filled my mind. There is something living inside her. Something dark and torturous. Something that devil wants to be released. God has said. What is it?